Imagine this: your home, your sacred ground, the place where your ancestors lived for generations, suddenly stolen from you, and then, years later, you're offered money in return. But could any amount of money ever replace your homeland? This is not just a hypothetical. It's the tragic reality for the Lakota Sioux and many other indigenous tribes. Welcome back to iRich History, where we explore the untold histories of Native American history, culture, and their struggles for justice. In this video, we discuss one question: what were Native Americans offered in exchange for giving up their lands? So, why did these injustices happen? How did we get here? And what does real restitution look like today? Stick with us because we're diving deep into these questions. In 1980, the Supreme Court of the United States authorized a $105 million settlement for the Lakota Sioux, compensation for the Black Hills of South Dakota, land that was stolen from them in violation of the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. Yet, the Lakota refused the money. Why? Because their fight isn't about dollars and cents. It's about the land itself, the sacred ground of their ancestors. The settlement money has grown over the years, now sitting in a government trust fund worth over $1.3 billion. If divided among all Sioux Native Americans today, each person would receive roughly $8,000. But for the Lakota, no amount of money can replace their ancestral homeland. They continue to demand the return of their land as guaranteed by the 1868 treaty. A treaty broken when gold miners, led by Custer and others, flooded the Black Hills in search of wealth. The Black Hills are just part of a much larger issue. Across the United States, Native American tribes were forced onto reservations, tiny plots of land compared to the vast territories they once called home. These weren't voluntary agreements. Land wasn't given up. It was taken. Tribes were coerced, their families were torn apart, and their cultures were nearly destroyed in the name of progress. Now, let's take a step back to the mid-19th century. The Piutes of eastern Nevada were offered just $5,000 in trade goods for the rights to vast swaths of their land. What did they lose? Their access to ecologically vital areas, lands they relied on for food, water, and shelter. In a matter of years, their population was decimated, and their way of life nearly collapsed. Time and again, Native Americans were offered small portions of land, often the most barren, undesirable areas. Yet, when something valuable like gold, oil, or timber was found on those lands, the treaties were broken. The buffalo, a lifeline for many Plains tribes, was hunted nearly to extinction to force dependence on government rations. Native children were sent to residential schools to assimilate, stripped of their languages and cultures. A man says, "I once visited an Indian college in Kansas. Tucked away behind a parking lot was a cemetery. The headstones marked the graves of children who had perished at this school. Their identities erased, marked only by their English names. It was a somber sight, a painful reminder of the cost of so-called civilization. Years later, I returned to find that their native names had been restored and offerings placed at the gate. Perhaps, in some small way, it was a sign of progress, a recognition of their sacrifice for the sake of America." Native American history is filled with histories of broken promises, stolen lands, and devastating losses. But it's also a history of survival, resilience, and resistance. For the Lakota, for the Piutes, for indigenous people across this continent, the fight isn't over. It's about more than money. It's about justice. It's about the land itself, their home. From the moment Europeans arrived, it was a battle of survival for Native American tribes. Europeans brought guns, horses, and diseases like smallpox that wiped out entire populations. Combine that with European unity against external threats, something Native Americans couldn't easily muster, and the odds were stacked against them from the start. But it wasn't just warfare. Treaties were made, but almost always broken. Colonists and settlers, often beyond the control of their monarchs, seized land faster than authorities could regulate. Indigenous populations were devastated by disease, and even after independence, countries like Mexico continued to oppress Native peoples in wars like the War of the Castes. So, why can't Native Americans reclaim their lands today? The answer lies in centuries of colonization, broken treaties, and systemic disregard for Native rights. The damage done is so vast that reversing it seems impossible. But one thing we can do is honor Native cultures and ensure their histories are never forgotten. So, we ask you, our viewers, what should restitution look like for the indigenous peoples of North America? Should land be returned? Should there be more recognition and more reparations? Drop your thoughts in the comments and share what you think is right. Thank you for watching iRich History. If this history moved you, if it opened your eyes to the struggles and triumphs of Native Americans, hit the like button, subscribe, and join us as we continue to uncover the untold truths of history. And remember to click that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. This is not just a history of loss. It's a history of resilience, of survival, and of hope. Let's honor that history together.